Welcome, everybody, to True Confessions of a Car Guy. Welcome to our latest episode. In studio tonight is obviously me, Badgie, the executive producer. Alongside the host and co-host, we got John Gavin here as well. Welcome, John.
How you doing, Badgie?
I'm doing pretty good.
Episode number 10, right?
No, this one is 9. And obviously we have Frankie backstage as well, the co-host. And tonight our special guest is Larry Malitz from the insurance industry, Flex Insurance, that deals with automotive and also trucks as well. We're going to bring Larry on to the stage here. Oh, that's not the way to do it. All right. Welcome, Larry.
Here I am.
Yeah, here you
go. So, man, Larry, it's been... Well, thanks for coming on, first of all. I appreciate you coming on.
Of course.
And, this whole podcast was done because I met so many people in the car business.
Yeah.
Over, you know how many places I jumped around.
No, I never.
Everywhere I went. Everywhere I went, I brought in INS. Because as for those of you who know Larry, it's a family business, and Larry was our INS guy, our binder guy. But like I said, I met a lot of acquaintances, made a lot of friends. But Larry is actually one of my very good friends, to the extent that we went on a fishing trip to Canada for 5 days, middle of nowhere. We flew in on an airplane, and you're on an island. You remember? So that's how close a friend he is. We played hooky, went to his house, ran the stairs for a while, and played and had a lot of fun.
A lot of good times.
Yeah, we had a lot of good times. I mean, we go back to probably 1980. What do you think?
Something.
80
something. 85, somewhere.
Yeah, 85, 86. Your dad, Moose.
Yeah.
Very well-known insurance guy what people don't understand is when we sell all these cars, it's just not, we don't just sell it. And then like today they sell a car, they get out their phone, and then they pull up their insurance online, or as I'm being told by some very smart people, they go on and do some insurance right online. Yeah. Right there, and they fax over or they email, they're covered. What did you do back in the day for the car deals? How did it all work? Explain that for the people listening.
Well, everything was like manual, even with like a 7-day binder that you guys needed to spot deliver the car, which my dad was one of the innovators of it, so it just came up physical damage only. You needed to spot deliver the car. You wanted to give the customer his little puppy dog who, and he'll do anything, give you more down payment, whatever he had to do to keep the car. 7-day binder was a great item to have,
Yeah, for like Liz, my wife, who's going to be listening to this, spot delivery means we sold the car and then we're going to put it on the road without having a bank approval, without having car insurance. We're just taking the chance that this customer is going to get financed, going to go get insurance, but I'm going to call Larry or fax Larry to cover him car, really cover the car for a week, right?
Right. For 7 days, physical only. So really what I was getting to, the manual was, you're right. They, at some point they faxed them. You guys filled them out manually, before you put it into the before they were the program, or we had to check our answer machine every day because you'd have a dealer calling, all grouped up on I got blah 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 blah. I couldn't understand who the hell was calling,
Yeah, I can imagine.
And then we're like writing it down, on the binder. So everything was manual, and then we can get into the manual insurance too, because perhaps your bank needed to have proof of at least physical damage more than just 7 days. So the dealer, we're open 9 to 9 Monday through Friday, 9 to 6 on Saturdays. I knew that. And the dealer would call, we got people there and placing a regular, we're quoting it. And at the beginning, we had rate books. So, I mean, we had to flip the pages until a program came out and we, were able to put it in. Just crazy.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many. You probably made 50% of the deals that went out in Chicagoland that didn't have insurance. You made at least 50% of them happen because we needed, like you said, we would get that binder to get them on the road, but then to get the deal done, they want proof of insurance, and you guys would supply that and even cover for us and say, yeah, he's covered right now. He might not be in 2 hours, but right now he's covered, right? Because we sometimes send a payment of $120 or $200, whatever it was, and then you had to, how many times you got to chase the people? I can imagine to pay insurance.
The rest of their monthly payments.
Yeah.
And what did you care?
Yeah. We didn't.
Your bank was already calling, and I'd go, wait, hold on. I call the dealer. Look, if you don't pay the first monthly payment, I'm not going to verify insurance or something, shit like that. But we did what we had to do, and that was part of, because I had jotted some notes. Look, that was our service. We took pride in that. That's what my dad and I and the people that ran his business. If a bank called to verify, we were right on it because we wanted you to deliver that car. That was our service,
Yes, so, you guys were the best when it came to binders. I mean, I hopped around so many places that when I came in, I would double business immediately and right away ask them, well, who's going to take care of the binder? They had no idea who. Now, I'm going to say, I think Larry paid me $10 a binder or something, but what was it? It was something, whatever it was. I was really happy about that. But everywhere I went, I brought Larry and I brought banks with me also because I'm used to doing it. I got to make sure I'm making deals. I'm sending them on the road and I got coverage because the last thing you need, how many times do you think you got the call, hey, the car's totaled and they had a binder? How many of those did you do?
Well, we would just pretend we couldn't hear it on the other line. No. We're the agent. We're the agent. The producer or whatever you can say. And even to this day, I always tell my customers, I'm just the messenger. We always pushed it off onto the insurance company. But if legitimately, if everything and the timing was right, then we took the dealer by the hand and made the claim and made sure that the car got fixed. We wanted to fly under the radar with the Department of Insurance. So we, even if like an the old American Ambassador or whoever these damn companies were, denied it because that was their motto, deny, it was hard. Those companies were really tough. We would have to, work a deal with the company, say, look, we'll put in some money, but we got to get this thing done. Where's the car? Get it out of there. Let's go. Let's get an estimate. Let's get it moving. Let's fix it. But a total, that's a toughie. There were some.
Yeah. I know of one for sure that because we were friends, it might have been before or after the fishing trip, but we were that close to friends. And I remember the finance guy calling me at home and saying, because I'm off on Thursdays at the time, and calling me at home and saying, I got a problem. I said, well, what's the problem? He said, well, I put the car out. We were here till 11:30, which was normal. We were always late. The one thing about the car business, it's not like any other business. At 9 o'clock, they put the shades on. In the car business, customers are walking in at 5 to 9. These poor guys and girls are stuck till 1 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 11. Nobody cares. They don't care about hours when it comes to buying a car. But he tells me, I put the car out and I didn't put a binder on it. And, it's like 10 in the morning. So the customer wasn't a customer scamming anybody. Like today, there's so much fraud involved. I'll tell you what happened, a story today that happened because I still work part-time. But he tells me they totaled the car. He said, how about I send a binder in now? I was like, no, we're not doing it. I mean, I send you 30 30 binders a month. I was getting $10. So I didn't want to screw that up. But no, I know he was like thinking that was the out. I was like, no, we're a big boy. We sell a lot of cars. We're going to have to eat it. So I'm sure I've run into other dealers that probably would have just said, yeah, try that. But you did have everything time stamped. So it's got to come back to, like you said, right?
I was going to say, we used to have these clocks, time clocks. And every night before my people left the office, they would take this is per, our manager, of the agency, take a bunch of applications of the different companies and just timestamp them and have them ready in case something happened. So we did that with a bunch of binders. And I think we were able to, we're confessing,
Yeah. No, you were the best. You were the best. When it came to covering the car, I'm still, to this day, I can remember how many cars because, I did a lot of secondary, which was, people who run into hard times. They had some credit issues. So I worked at a lot of places where that was like a specialty of mine. And most of the time, they don't expect to even drive home with a car. So insurance isn't like, oh, I got Allstate, I got State Farm or something. I got to call Larry. And, working at 49 dealerships like I did and walking in most of the time, they didn't even, I can remember being up in Highland Park. They never needed a binder.
No,
they didn't need that. But when I got there, I brought the business from all over, Waukegan, Kenosha, you name it. We needed binders because we're spotting everybody. Everybody's getting on the road, insurance or not. And that was thanks to INS at the time.
Right on. Yeah. That was like you were pretty much one of the pioneers also. It's weird to say with the secondary, or should I say, what is rats or
no, we don't do that. No. We had
secondary. You had the relationships with those banks.
Yeah, I think Kevin Caton was the pioneer in secondary. He had that little, I think he had the lemon commercial or
Howard
newspaper. No, Howard. Yes.
Yeah.
I work with him now. I work part-time and Kevin works for us. Yes.
Oh, he does.
For the same group I do. And Kevin is probably the best in the business at getting people cars who don't think they're going to get one. I think he's the best. He's probably, if I'm going to say a pioneer, it would be Kevin, because Kevin was at one place for 20 plus years. I was at 20 plus places in 5 years. So, I had 4 W-2s some years. So Kevin's the real pioneer, but I did probably set a lot of dealers. A pioneer for that dealership probably was first time anybody did what you did, what I did at the time, which was get people cars and insurance, because most people always had insurance or had already walked in. Today, they walk in, they know the VIN number, they know how many miles are on it, they know everything about it. Before they walk in, it's a whole different world. They come in, here's my AAA or whatever it is, et cetera, et cetera. What kind of things did happen to you while you were doing deals that were good, bad, and ugly? What were some of the things that happened that dealers tried or didn't try? Or
well, there was definitely other situations, with other dealers where, they forgot to put coverage on the vehicle, at the time of delivery, and a couple dealers, shoved it down our. We had to do something. We paid plenty. Plenty. I don't know what it did for us, because probably the next day some other agency got in anyway. So what's the difference, We just had to do it. And just to being in a position, we had a good relationship with the insurance company, the companies, but it was tough. And, getting it through, they were going to handle the claim. They could easily handle the claims. So they let us, sweat a little bit. But
when it went to computer, there was like a program that came out. How did those insurance companies get into the program, or did you have to pay for the program? How did all that work? I wasn't clear on how that works.
Are you talking about for quoting and
placement? Yeah, because you could quote several companies at once really quick at a
Yeah.
certain time. I remember that happening.
Yeah.
When did that happen, and how did that happen? I mean,
And I would say that, we were kind of a guinea pig for the company that that came up the program, because they, to this day, we use the Raider and their agency management and their premium finance software. I'm going to say it in the mid 2000s, finally, like 2005, maybe even earlier than that, but they had their Raider in place. So they had all of those carriers, listed, and we'd be on the phone with whoever, and asking, and you guys had the deal bag in front of you, so you'd have everything in front of you, boom, 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 and whatever. Sometimes we'd split and put the liability with one company, and then the comp and collision with another company to get the rate. Here's the down. Here's the monthly payments. You want it now. We always would, most F&I guys would be on the phone doing that. Some guys would try to put the customer on the phone. And I would say, I don't want to talk to the customer, because if we say something he doesn't want to hear, he's going to walk from the car.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I agree. I would never.
You tell them.
Yeah. No, exactly. I mean, it was like you think about it, it was the catalyst to late night purchasing and selling of vehicles. We couldn't do it at 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night without you, because the banks are closed. Now it's different, but back then everything was shut down at 6 o'clock. So if you had one of those typical customer comes in, a night fighter, that night fighter at 10 to 9 shows up, and I'm ready to test drive 3 cars. You got to make sure that they got insurance, that that's covered. And I can't remember when the competition really. I mean, there was 2 of you at first. I think Telro, right?
Yeah.
And INS, and then Insure on the Spot came on the scene.
Northwest also. Northwest Insurance.
Northwest. That's right. That's right. I mean, I can't tell you how many times they came. He said, "Come on, give me your bid," because I did a lot of volume. And I was like, no, Larry's my guy, man. I'd never switch ever. Whereas, you were loyal to me, I was loyal to you, because there's some of the things you said. I'm sure I was probably one of those dealers at one point said, "Hey, I need you to help me out here," and you always were there to take care of us. So
we had to be. Look at competition's competition, and you got to kind of hold your ground. And it was tough. There's some formidable opponents and some weaklings out there. I was going to say it when I kind of came in to my dad's agency. I was in TV production. My grandmother bent my ear, says, my dad was kind of restarting. I said, all right, I'll go in, maybe I'll make enough money and buy my own production company. Well, that didn't happen, but it was hard. The dealer, the owner of the dealership had an insurance license. A lot of them did. You know what I mean? They had, and so they had an insurance department. So we would simply send them a statement every month, and they pay us the net amount. They had an insurance amount. They had renewals. They had all the, like a regular insurance agency within the dealership, until the competition came in there, and then, went after F&I guys and went after salesmen, Handle the finance manager. That was it. I couldn't rely on a salesman to give me my down payments on these policies. And the dealer would let the F&I do their thing, just deliver the car. They didn't care how you did it. Just, deliver it, get it done, get the deal done.
Did you ever have trouble where you had just an F&I guy and all of a sudden there's 10 deposits in and he's gone? Does that happen?
Yeah. So that's why, you kind of want to know who the dealer is, or, but we've got burned over the years on downs. Yeah. But if I get to that guy, it was all over. Shook him upside down.
That's the problem with the car business. When you do something, the degrees of separation. I was just talking about this with my boss today. Yeah. And I said, degrees of separation in the world is like 7, but in the car business, it's like 1 or 2. I mean, there's always somebody that that I know, it's like 2 people separate us. So that's why I always say when I'm doing one of these is the guys will be found. You know, I was on with a good friend of mine, Jimmy Duvas. I don't know if you heard about what's going on with him. They're suing him personally for $216 million. The FTC is suing him, which is crazy. But you know, we know the phonies, we know the fakers, we know the guys who are the scammers and the schemers. And then it'll catch up to them. It took longer. Longer because you didn't have everything digital. It wasn't technology for everything. I mean, today you can find out in a minute by looking at, you know, where I came from at Cox. We would, you know, kind of like assess what guys are doing and how they're doing it. And you can look at 30 days worth of work and say, well, he needs some help. He doesn't. This guy's the real deal. Back then, it was more by, you know, you working next to him or talking to somebody. What did we do when we hired somebody back then? We got on the phone and we tried to talk to his old boss.
Oh,
Find out real skinny on why he's gone. You know, today, I think it was best. I heard one of my friends was in corporate world for forever, and he got in the car business about 6 years ago. And he says to me, he goes, I don't think any of the guys that I talk to, their resumes are true. And I said, yeah, that could be. That could be. I said, if you see college on there, I think that's a kind of a giveaway. There's not many guys in the car business who went to college.
I was thinking about that. Yeah, you know.
College of Hard Knocks, maybe, but that's about it. Yeah. You know, well, there are more streetwise guys than college. But yeah, the business was so much fun. How about when you come to the tent sales? Remember, we were at the amphitheater. I still say the Moros invented it, but then I thought back about it. Larry Fall did it because he was like Lynch was like the first dealer, I think, that had like 10 or 12 franchises, all in Irving Park. You remember there between Central or Central and let's say
Long.
Yeah. He had 12 or 13. Yeah, but he didn't have tent sales. Now Larry Fall had everything in Schaumburg. Yeah, and he did the tent sales in the Woodfield Mall. I think that's where they were. Yeah, and those would last a week. But the Moros like reinvented the wheel, where they went and brought 17 or 20 franchises from Kenosha, Oak Lawn, Highland Park, Mount Prospect, you name it, to this place, and we'd sell 1,000 cars in downtown Chicago, where none of their stores were. And
the international amphitheater,
exactly. They'd advertise it like crazy, and we would kill business for 2 months, 3 months. Any dealer within 20 miles of that place.
Curry did it.
Yeah, Curry did it too. They did it after Morrow, I think. I don't know where they did
finance company, you know, but. And I set up, and I had a time clock and all the applications.
Yeah.
And you know, Morrow, I think that came. You know, my dad was best friends with the owner of S&S. They all went to high school together.
I worked there too. I worked there too. What was his name? Great guy. What was it? Ron Kushner?
Yeah, exactly.
Ron Kushner. He taught me. Is he still alive? Do you know?
No, they're all gone.
Oh, geez.
Jack Eichen and Mort Gelman and all.
Mort's gone too. He's got a son.
They all went to high school. They all played, sports. They were best friends. They all stood up for each other's weddings.
Oh my gosh, that was like one of the most fun places. Here, I'll tell you when it was. It was when Walter Payton died. I can remember sitting in my 4Runner in front of S&S. Yeah. And it was on a side street, Kingsbury, Kingston,
something like that. In Elmhurst.
Elmhurst, that's it. And I can remember sitting in front of it and crying because Walter Payton had just died.
Oh,
right. But I worked for S&S in their F&I division. Remember, they bought, or they had warranties. They were selling the general warranty.
Exactly. Fireman's fund warranty. I know.
When I got there, they had like 500 contracts a month they were getting from dealers. Well, I at that time had already worked for about 20 dealers. So I knew I could go to those 20 and get them to talk about selling the warranty. At the time, they didn't really have self-insured like they do now.
No.
They didn't have the offshore deals. That wasn't
Yeah.
really in existence. The only one that had that
Yeah.
was the warranty company.
Yeah.
So I think we got them up to about 5,000 a month, and then they sold it right away to a real big F&I company. I can't remember the name now,
Like
but they
Oak,
sold it.
Oak, I think.
Oak bought it. Yes, Oak bought it. And I don't know if Oak's even in business anymore
Yeah, who
because
knows?
you got all the big ones out there.
Yeah.
So, but
Yeah.
yeah, that was a great place. Mark Gelman was a great guy.
So they were, the nuts and bolts and everything in the back end, and then they did the front end stuff.
Yeah,
My dad was involved. Probably one of the first guys to sell credit life to the dealers. He had a big company in the day, and he sold it. He sold it to some guy, but my dad was involved, and then we did warranties for a while. We were approached to sell Gap, right when it came out, and
yeah.
all that stuff. So,
Well, I can remember Credit Life being sold in finance office, and then I don't know how we got around not having an insurance license as a finance person. I don't know how we got around it, but we sold it. And I can remember at one point a hammer dropped because there was a case, a husband and a wife bought a car and they didn't offer them Credit Life because we didn't sell life insurance. We were a car dealer and they didn't offer it to him even. And the husband died the next day and they had to pay off. They sued him and the dealer lost. So a hammer dropped it because I worked at 4 dealers that year. Every one of them had me sign have them sign a form that they did not want credit. Eventually, it was on the contract of almost every contract that said you don't want credit life insurance. It wasn't like that back then. You had the blue Ileana or the gray Ileana. The gray, I think, was simple interest, and the blue was rule of 78s, I believe. But there was nothing on there about credit life.
Nothing on the contracts that it was automatic.
Now it's mid. Now it's on there.
Everyone sold it. Then it was on every deal.
Yeah.
Every deal.
It was.
What was the nickname for it?
I don't remember. What was it? Yeah, I don't.
Croak and choke.
Oh, croak and choke. That's right. I don't remember. Yes, croak and choke. That's right. It was croak and choke.
We sold that. We put, look at with these insurance policies. Everyone did. We had a lot of back end, like bail bond cards, and we even had an accidental death policy we'd put on the back end because we premium financed everything. We would just, add everything on to ours too. So it was all part of the monthly payment. So who cared,
Yeah. I mean, that gets back to like this case with the FTC with Jimmy. They're suing him because he sold stuff. Well, back in the day, they sued the dealer because they didn't sell stuff. So how does the dealer, I mean, we're not, I always say it, every problem we have, we created ourselves as car people. We did a lot of things that we probably shouldn't have. But at the end of the day, we were always really just trying to sell a car, make a buck, and take care of that customer because you wanted them coming back. You wanted to be able to say, you wanted them to say, I got a guy. You wanted them to call you. You wanted to get the referrals and so on. So, and it was the same, I'm sure, with you, with your insurance company, because even though you got the binder, that was just the beginning. From there, you went to the solicitation of the customer to try to keep it a very competitive market.
It was elite. We had to give the utmost service. That we definitely took pride in that. Well, number one, we didn't want any Department of Insurance, and we never had any complaints. And we took pride in our service. I used to say to the dealer, I said, "We'll take care of this insurance customer the way you would take care of it. They came from you,
right?
To you and complain. We don't want them to do that."
Yeah.
So that was.
I'm going to bring Frankie back on.
Okay.
And if I remember right, Frank Aluch.
What's up, guys? How are you?
Larry was the binder or insurance guy for us at Auto Match, and that's when you were a finance guy. So, and then you at that time, that's when Insure on the Spot came on. So, So, but there were other companies too that were coming at us. So Frankie had, I know probably how many people solicited, because I wasn't in the building anymore. I was out
You
at all
you
the other
were
stores.
you were
How
down
many
in
people
Florida.
probably came trying to get that kind of business? And this is only what 10 years, 15 years ago. How long ago was that?
Just
13.
probably 10, yeah, right around 10,
Yeah.
11.
How long since you've been out of insurance on the spot? How long's that been down? When did that end? Approximately.
INS?
Yes, that's what I mean. How
INS.
long? When did that end?
Insurance National Services. It's been a while. I opened up Flex maybe about 15 years ago.
Yeah, so that makes about
It's been a
sense.
long time.
Because I think I met you, Larry, at Auto Match, and you were John's guy, and I didn't know anything about anything. I sold my first cars before I bought my first cars from dealers, but I met you, and then when John, when you got promoted to go to Florida and build up the new stores and do other stuff, I think everybody knew that when you left, it was like free reign to come in and try and get the new guy to get a new insurance guy. So I know we have a mutual friend who I can't say he didn't help me out, but every time he would come in was a production, and I've actually worked him through a few different dealers. Story in particular, one of those late night deals, Saturday night. I want to go home. We close at 7, but we've had customers till 9:30, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, almost going on midnight. And the dealer I worked for at the time, I think I did more paperwork for a car deal than I did when I bought my first house. It was insane. We had to take pictures of the spare tire. We had to take pictures of the wheel lock. We had to take pictures of the insurance, current insurance, not just, oh, hey, I got State Farm, I got Allstate, it's a big company. No, this car has to be insured. I don't want to hear about it. Okay, fine. We took pictures of everything, the battery voltage, everything. And it's a late deal.
Bank?
No, not. This was all internal stuff. I think they got burned on a couple before I got there. Like I said, I came from a mid-luxury used dealer, so we were flying by the seat of our pants.
I'll tell you why, though. If you didn't do that, this customer's going to get home, and it probably happened. That's why it's because they said I had no spare. I didn't get a spare. I didn't get an extra key. So the dealer had to get. That's why the WEO started.
Yeah.
After what's his name said, you'll get two more cylinders in Florida when you get down there. So it's so go ahead, Frankie.
You'll be happy to know that story still comes up in the lunchroom about once every 6 months. But you guys never heard about this? Oh, it's the best story. But speaking of insurance, it was a Saturday. I'll never forget this. And Larry, unfortunately, it wasn't with you because it probably would have got done a lot faster. But it was through Insure on the Spot, and it's like 10:45, and the last document I need is insurance. And he's like, I have insurance through State Farm. I'm like, they're not going to give you a new card. I can't let you take your car home that you just bought for $60-some thousand. So I had to call a buddy of mine, and I'm like, what can you do for me? I need like a 3-day policy. And I had, right before I got into cars, I was trying to get my insurance license. So I knew that they existed. I'm like, I need it. Give me a 24-hour binder, please. I called him, and he didn't live close to the dealer. Now it's like mid-November, back when we still had snow in November, and all of a sudden I see an Escalade on 2 wheels, and our buddy jumps out. He's beat red. He's sweating bullets, and he did the binder right then and there for me, which saved my deal, and it put another one on the board for the store, which they were happy about. But they're like, "How do you know this guy? You said you never."
I wouldn't have done that.
Oh yeah, I had that feeling.
I would have. Now wait, was this in Morton Grove?
No, this was in Chicago. Like I said, I met
but
you.
Where you're talking about was Morton Grove Auto Match.
Yes,
that was Morton Grove.
Okay.
Yes. But the story is a different store. But
different store. But yeah, like I said, I mean, I remember I've met you through there, and I may or may not have gotten a couple envelopes with some $10 bills in there too.
Probably more than that.
Well, I think actually eventually, because now you're telling me it's 15 years ago. I might even the last year that I was actually last couple might have used Insure on the Spot because of Dewey was a friend. So I think by then you were already out and doing something else, doing the trucks. You do trucks now. So
there was a transition. I did health and life insurance. I mean, oh God, my poor family, but that's another story. But things change, and there was a guy in my community that he's still very powerful in the currency exchange business. Big entrepreneurs. I mean, they're very powerful. And he says, "Hey, let's start." Thank God he approached me and said, "Let's start another agency." So we were getting leads from the currency exchanges, which is good. It's the same type of insurance, my type of customer, but it was a gerbil wheel and it was too hard. But he also owns a piece of a finance company. It's called a factoring. Do you ever hear the term factoring?
No.
It is kind of it's a term. It's a finance type company that let's say you're a trucker and you've dropped your haul or your load off and you're waiting to get paid on it. This finance company will float you. It helps the trucker with his float.
Loan thing for truckers.
Keeps the float going.
Gotcha.
So it says, hey, let's, you got any companies that write, charge. So we were getting some leads. They're out of Atlanta or whatever. So that's what kind of started maybe almost 10 years ago, where we did more trucking and transportation. And that's
pretty similar to Sunbit. I don't know. I was telling about it on my other episode where a company will actually front money for repairs. I'm in the service side now, Larry. I'm not on the sales side anymore. But another company will front the money for repairs or maintenance or really anything related to service, so the customer can get their car fixed and they pay them back however they choose to do so.
Right.
So that's an interesting. My best friend, I was the best man at his wedding as a trucker, and I'm sure he's run into a couple times where he can't leave until he gets that purchase order or check or something. I don't know how it works, but I'm sure
a lot of guys use factoring companies, to keep their cash flow going.
Sure.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah. So nothing's glamorous,
Yeah.
Never is.
Well, Blair, I'm so glad you came on.
Yeah.
You still got your band? You're still in your band, right?
Yeah.
What's your band called?
King Saturday.
King Saturday
and Southwater.
And Southwater. When's your next gig? Well,
we just had one Sunday evening in the sweltering heat, and then last night I played. And this Saturday with my other band, a private party in Hinsdale.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yep, so there you go.
It's been good. And then I got something going with like a Tom Petty tribute band. I'm a hired gun.
Plays bass, right? Plays bass. Is that right? Yeah, that's good. Yeah, Larry's been in a band since I've known him. There you go. He's been in a band since I've known him.
Always.
But,
it's a great hobby.
I wish I knew how to play a musical instrument.
I know you do.
No, I don't. I wish I knew how. But anyhow, I really appreciate you coming on.
I appreciate you guys. I love the dealers.
Yeah,
always love my car dealers. Respect, hardest working guys in America. And I always said it. I always had an affection for car guys. Always loved them.
Well, they're hardworking guys and girls today.
Yeah.
Still are stuck till midnight and 10 o'clock on a Saturday. And they still, nobody cares about their time, but they do everything they can for the customer to get their best deal and be happy for the whole time they own their car.
Yeah.
So, but thanks again. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
We want to take this opportunity again. Thanks everyone for watching and tuning in and supporting us. Momentum is growing on this fairly new podcast, and we just want to thank you guys again. Want to thank Huck. We can't forget Huck.
There's Huck.
And also, where can you find us? It's easy. True Confessions of a Car Guy on all social media platforms. We have a website as well. And for those of you in the car business, we have a LinkedIn page too. You can connect with other car guys and exchange info. Maybe there's a connection you can make there as well. And with that, we want to thank you again for tuning in and tune in to our next episode.